Oh boy, I made such a mess this time, but I did collect a lot of good data, so jumping right in. This was a forgotten beast. It is a gigantic scaly firefly. A gigantic scaly... This is a bad start. A gigantic scaly firefly. It has 3 long curving horns. It belches and croaks. Around it is a cloud of poisonous vapor. Believe it or not, this is the least crazy thing you're going to see in this whole video. So I forgot to mention that it should be specifically in a fantasy style. It took a more minimalistic and or in the bottom right corner, it took kind of like a very, an especially realistic or kind of like from a biology textbook kind of depiction, the sense of like it is belching. I said it belches and croaks, which is the original description from Dwarf Fortress. It does have a belch effect on virtually every illustration. It's arguable in the bottom right again, which is more, it's kind of striking out. But it got the cloud of poisonous vapor. That is a gigantic scaly firefly. So great. I forgot. That's my fault. I forgot to say that it was a fantasy creature, or it should be done in a fantasy style, so it looks a little like word art, but that's my fault. So great. Right off the bat, Bing AI, you know, it's been in the news, all this crazy OpenAI, Microsoft's intrigue and everything. We are covering it right now. The date is November 2023, and we are covering this via Dwarf Fortress, descriptions typed into Bing Image Create. I'm honestly excited. I'm glad you're all here with me. Let me see. Okay, next one. It is going to get weird, though. Okay, this one turned out good. This is, okay, a little palette cleanser, and it's going to be good going into what the issues we're about to see. Dwarf Fortress specifically says this guy has like striking light blue eyes and has like two-tone hair in the brown and gray that's specifically depicted. Honestly, they crushed it. I helped a little bit because I changed. So my prompt was fantasy painting of a human warrior wielding a whip, which, so in Dwarf Fortress, they would just call that a human lasher. So I kind of helped a lot on that one, to be fair, but you know, it was just one sentence. That's what I do. His hair is long, the colors of russet and gray. They got it. The eyes are aqua. They got it. They got everything. Beautiful. And this is a cool character. I would play a video game where this guy was the main character. This is beautiful. All right, this is where we get deep breath, everybody. Okay. So we switched over. I'm gonna even probably edit that out. So this is one of the best defenders. Honestly, I don't want to make this a political thing or anything, but this is a female dwarf, an elite wrestler. She is one of the greatest soldiers of my well-defended garrison, Dwarf Fortress. You'll see the prompt here. I did my best to translate exactly what she looks like into the Bing Image Create, and I got blocked for that. They said unsafe image content detected. I didn't get blocked. No, they let me do more prompts after that. But this prompt that you're seeing on your screen was blocked. You see I got the little dog, another little artifact. When this video is in a historical archive, the initial error image was just a dog that seems to have broken some kind of a chocolate egg. I'm not even sure. And there's a mug in the foreground, but it says unsafe image content detected. Okay, let me read it out for more posterity. Prompt: a full body and pose depiction of a fantasy dwarven wrestler, female. I can see where that would trigger some flags maybe, but I had already tried 3 times and it had only given me shoulder up. And so a lot of things, I was trying to specifically depict the physicality of this bearded female dwarven wrestler, and I can see as I'm describing it out loud how this would trigger some red flags. But anyway, so I tried these prompts 4 times, and each time I asked for 4 attempts. And one of those times, Bing Image Create said, I'm not going to do that. And again, so just to read it, it's nothing wrong with it, I would argue. Prompt: a full body and pose depiction of a fantasy dwarven wrestler, female. She has long hair and a neatly trimmed dwarf beard. Her eyes are amethyst. Her skin is golden yellow. Her skin is pale and her nose is short. They said unsafe image content detected. And then after that, they gave me this. And we're going to cut to the next image. I would argue that's more. I would argue that's worse. And you see the prompt, I slightly adjusted to get this. And this was one of the 4 attempts. This is the best I could get. For some reason, when I describe a mighty elite soldier, and wrestling is important in dwarven culture, the only issue, and this is no even real, critique, but the thing that Dwarf Fortress and AI don't get about each other is that women have mighty beards and that wrestling is really, really important. It's like the main combat style. It's their native combat style. So when I'm sorry, if I ask for a female dwarf and she's like a mighty wrestler and she's like the Hulk Hogan of female wrestlers and she has a big beard, Bing thinks I'm making some kind of fetish material. That's their problem. Okay, so this one we're back on track. The prompt was a fantasy painting of a swords-wielding dwarven warrior. His beard is braided and his mustache is combed. His head is clean shaven. This was an oversimplification of the original Dwarf Fortress prompt, which said specifically, let me find, his sideburns are clean shaven. It did, however, in a few of these actually give me specifically clean sideburns, so good on the AI. But I wrote his head is clean shaven, his skin is wrinkled, and his eyes are the color of brass. Nailed it. Perfectly. I will say, you kind of use the same trick as it did for the human swordswoman, who I was also pleased with how it came out. And they do kind of just stick a sword in the background of what is otherwise just a portrait. It's a little bit of a cheap trick, but it works. It works for swords fantasy characters specifically. All right, now this is an important one. For this batch, this is the only one where I managed to express to the AI that it's a dwarven woman with a beard. My prompt was a fantasy painting of the baroness consort of a dwarven city. Clothes are suitable for that of royalty. This is me massaging the prompt a little bit to explain what Dwarf Fortress is trying to explain. So I said her clothes are suitable for that of royalty. Her long dark hair is tied in a ponytail. That's a direct, from the game itself. Her lips are thin and her skin is copper, also from the game, maybe parsed by me. She wears a neat dwarven beard on her face. I tried to just slip that in and hope that I paid attention. This looks like a baroness consort to me. So if you're not as familiar with Dwarf Fortress, of course, as your town grows, if you impress the mountain home, which is the monarchy of your dwarven society, you may be able to appoint a baron and then a count, and then eventually the monarchy may even move to your fortress. In this case, this is a baroness consort. So I had appointed a baron, and one of his lovely concubine-style consort brides is as described here. This is one of the ones where I think the AI really nailed it. That's genuinely what I think the game is trying to express her as looking like. All right, moving on. This was a fun one. So here's one where I said, you know what? The AI is being kind of lazy. All due respect, it works really hard. It makes 1,000 images that would take me a lot longer to paint and in not so much detail, but it tends to kind of cheap out until you've trained the AI, until you've got your own little system going. It'll give you just kind of a general portrait of a guy or a lady standing there. It'll just it'll block it out once in a relatively neutral pose. So this is one where my goblin woodcutter was actually injured in a siege by goblins and he lost his leg. And so I said, I need you to draw me like a special, like not just a standard character. I need specifically this. You can't just modify it. It didn't do great. It did okay. You can see the bottom right. That's the only time it actually mentioned it. Kind of abstractly depicted the injury. I'm sure if I worked harder through iterations and had an AI model like I was training myself, I could get a lot better results. But again, this is just being AI's create image. So this is the best I could do. Prompt was a fantasy painting of a goblin holding a wood axe. His lower left leg is missing, and I capitalized missing to try to add emphasis. So I put his lower left leg is missing. His hair is long. He is skinny. His lips are thick, and his eyes are wide set. His hair is stark scarlet, and his skin is green. The AI doesn't seem to have a problem with doing my palette swaps. It'll give me whatever colors I want. It'll get the palette correct pretty easily. And I had to specify that he was holding an axe to give the idea that he was a woodcutter. And then even when I said his lower left leg is missing, it just ignored me 3 times because it just shot him from the waist up. It's like I just give out portraits mostly, unless you've trained me for something more specific. So the only one that abstractly depicted a missing leg was the bottom right. So that is the canon one. Ignore those other ones. And this guy now in my head canon does have a floating foot that he keeps nearby, and he balances perfectly on the other foot as though that leg is not missing. And finally, we get to my favorite part. If you made it this far, this is the reward. We're going to talk about Gorlaks, which are my favorite race of humanoid creature in all of Dwarf Fortress. I love them so much. I think they're so adorable. If you look in the little image underneath where you see the actual Dwarf Fortress GUI setup, it says Onus Korebek, Onus Korebek, Gorlak Bard. That little picture, that's how they're supposed to look according to Dwarf Fortress. I love these little guys. Anytime that one visits I hate to, if you encounter them as hostiles in the caves, it's very sad because I love it. They're so adorable. But so here is from my first batch. I could not make the AI understand that it was both this weird little horrifying creature that I love and also a bard. So this is the first, didn't really work, but I would say that this is basically how I imagine a Gorlak in general. Picture a feral one that your dwarfs would have to fight. So the prompt was a fantasy painting of a bard character, which it ignored, described as follows: a small, round humanoid found wandering the caves deep underground. Most of its body is taken up by a huge, tusked mouth. The AI art kind of does like teeth as tusks, which I appreciate. I actually really like that. But you can see in the original Dwarf Fortress art, for the Steam version 50 point whatever, it has just a big mouth with 2 tusks on the end. But so not perfect, but I do like this interpretation. He's muscular, his skin is goldenrod, his eyes are red. You can see I like this design, but it did not capture the bard spirit. accurate, so I had to move on. We're moving on now. The one I circled here and marked with yes, that's what I picture for a Gorlak bard. That is a Gorlak bard. I think the top left, it took a whole elephant head because it said a tusked mouth, and I think the AI kind of, was like, oh, well, a tusked mouth, that's, to be fair, in the Earth, our reality, a tusked mouth usually does imply an elephant, so that's correct in its own way. And then it even extrapolated from that and gave it kind of like a Southeast Asian headband, which is really fascinating how it extrapolates. But the fact is, so for this prompt, all I said was a fantasy painting of a bard character. They must be carrying a musical instrument and wearing the vibrant clothing of a bard. That's where I finally insisted. It gave most of my characters a ukulele or some variant of a stringed instrument. In the bottom left he's playing two wind instruments at the same time, and he seems to also have an accordion under his arm. It's incredible, and he has a keyboard and a string instrument on his back. I mean, that's the king of bards for sure. The bottom right also has several instruments. The top two have what seems to be either a sleeping roll or kegs on their back and some kind of string instrument. I like the top right. I gotta be honest. That is exactly what I imagine. He has a tusked mouth. He has tusks that are like also a cute mustache, and his whole face is a mouth, which is what Dwarf Fortress specifically asks for. And he's a big yellow guy with red eyes, and he's very clearly playing a song and singing something. That is my boy. That is Onos Korobarik. That is Onos Korobarik, the Gorlak bard. And I'll leave you all with that. If you made it this far in the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I don't get monetized. I don't monetized until 2,000 subscribers. It's incredible. YouTube's gonna take me off the channel for even mentioning this. Honestly, at this point, the AI is so good. I shouldn't have even said that. All right, I'm getting way too far on this. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch everybody in the next one.